Hi, everyone. My name is Dustin Kirby from Foundational Facility Management Consulting, and thank you for taking the time to join me today. Today, I'm going to be going through how to know your facility assets better by inventorying and assessing your church building. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the slideshow, and at the end, I'll answer some questions. And if anyone has any questions afterward, they're free to contact me. My email and everything will be on there as well. I'll go ahead and share. Okay. As I said, my name is Dustin Kirby. I'm the owner of Foundational Facility Management Consulting. Today, we will discuss your facility assets, how you can know them better, how you can inventory them, and how you can assess them. So I'll start with just introducing myself again, a little bit about myself, and then my wife, who is also part of Foundational Facility Management. But as for me, I'm a certified facility manager with over 20 years of experience overseeing everything from church campuses to government buildings. I've got a background in construction, operations, and capital planning, and I bring a lot of real world expertise to help churches create sustainable long-term solutions for their facility needs. One thing that's important to me is I really enjoy helping churches take care of their buildings in a way that supports ministry and helps people find their place in that type of work. I really feel that the building itself is one more staff member for each of your churches that can help welcome people to your facility. It also, just like a staff member that pushes people away, it can be unappealing and not as welcoming to new visitors. So obviously our goal is to always make it a safe, fun, welcoming place. But a little bit about my wife, Stephanie. She runs a lot of the operations side. She brings a practical, thoughtful approach to supporting churches through foundational. She handles the details that help the big picture come together, from developing resources, organizing behind the scenes systems, and making sure churches feel supported every step of the way. Stephanie's passion is helping churches grow and reach people. She loves creating tools that reduce stress and make it easier for church leaders to focus on ministry. We really like that behind the scenes type of work. We respect so much how everyone has their skills, and a lot of church leaders that might be upfront, like, hey, they're needed there, and there's got to also be a team that does a lot of the back end work, and we really appreciate that, and that's one of our passions. So go ahead and go to the next, and I'm just going to go over the agenda for today. We're going to discuss why your facility asset inventory matters, what counts as a facility asset, the step-by-step inventory process, how to assess the asset condition from inventory, taking it from inventorying it to the action plan, and then we're going to do a question and answer and next steps. And I've got down there a little blurb that is just really important to me. I say this a lot, is you can't maintain it if you don't know that you have it. And basically that's saying if you don't have an accurate asset inventory, how are you going to maintain it? Can't. So that is one of the first steps that you have to take, is you have to create that inventory, and that allows you to build out your preventive maintenance plan. It allows you to build out your budget, your life cycle planning. It allows you to build your entire work order system around that. So you have to have an accurate inventory system in order, an accurate inventory of your assets in order to build a facility maintenance system. So by the end of this hour, you should know the basic steps to start building your asset inventory and how to turn it into a plan. All right, why knowing your facility assets matter. So I think we can all agree that we want safe and welcoming facilities for congregations and guests. Like I had said before, we want to draw people in, and we want our buildings to help do that. We want our buildings to be welcoming and appealing. We want them to have spaces that can house different events, whether it's a small group Bible study, or some of you might have a gym or a really nice sanctuary. Whatever it is, we want all of your areas to be safe and welcoming. So a lot of that comes with maintenance. It's the janitorial and maintenance that keeps that up. So you got to have it well lit, you have to have it maintained, and you have to have it cleaned. So with that, preventive maintenance saves time, money, and stress. I've worked with many churches and honestly, a lot of facilities that, excuse me, are outside the church world. And a lot of people have basically just a reactive plan. So what that means is if it breaks, we figure out a way to fix it. There's nothing that's saying that, oh, you did something so wrong with that, but it doesn't allow you to plan. Like it's just like I said, it's totally reactive. It's not proactive whatsoever. So you're gonna have some good months where nothing maybe goes wrong. Then you're gonna have a lot of surprise months where you have emergency repairs or you blow your budget or you're having a big event and something goes wrong in your facility at just the wrong time, which we obviously don't want to happen. But another reason knowing your facility assets matter is it supports accurate life cycle planning and budgeting. So many times I hear a lot of leaders talk about budgeting. They're frustrated because they'll set their 5, their 10-year, their 1-year budget, and they're constantly going over it in the maintenance and repair area. Well, a lot of that is because they didn't start with a proper inventory of their building assets. That inventory allows you to find out the condition of your current assets, the age, and the expected life cycle. So you know when that asset is going to be becoming near the end of its life cycle. Some assets can actually live past their expected life cycle. Some might die just before that, but it's really nice when you take an industry standard, it'll give you a pretty accurate guess on how long that asset is going to last. That way you can build your budget out for the expectation of, say, your roof is going to need to be replaced in 15 years. It's a lot nicer to have that known ahead of time than when that year comes and it's a surprise and you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Or your HVAC system, maybe, that's another thing, tens of thousands of dollars. I would much rather know ahead of time, and sometimes different pieces of your HVAC system, if you know when they're going to start or ending their life cycle, you can replace them instead of one unit as a whole. You can start replacing them as needed. For example, if you have exterior air conditioning units, the condensers a lot of times will wear out before your air handlers. And instead of waiting till everything's broken, whenever your condensers hit the end of their life cycle and start costing you more money in repairs and time than it's worth, then you replace that. But anyway, definitely knowing your facility assets matters for your budget and your life cycle planning. So remember, a strong plan equals fewer emergencies and more predictable costs. All right, we'll move on. Okay, so I get this question a lot, like what counts as a facility asset? Like if I tell someone I'm going to do an FCA for them, excuse me, and that would be a facility condition assessment. So I am going through their facility and I'm looking at all of their facility assets and I'm doing a condition assessment on them. I'm giving those assets, basically I'm looking at their condition, the age, and the visual appearance, and then I'm able to give them a pretty accurate assessment of their assets. But first, you would like to know, of course, what counts as a facility asset. I'll just give you some examples here. So in HVAC, your heating components, your cooling, your air handlers, your boilers, roofing, you might have shingles or you might have a flat roof. And it's not only your roofs, it's your roof systems, which includes your gutters and your drains. All of that stuff has to be maintained and replaced as needed. In plumbing, your water heaters, your water pumps, your backflow preventers, your sump pumps. All of that stuff has to also be maintained and replaced as needed. And your electrical panels, your lighting, your generators, your solar panels, many other items for all of those areas. I'm just giving you a few things to give you an example of what would be a facility asset. So basically, anything that costs money to maintain, repair, or replace and helps your facility run is a facility asset. So a lot of people actually miss some of their hidden systems. For example, like maybe their lighting, maybe their flooring, or their kitchen, the kitchen equipment. But a lot of people, like I said, with the flooring, aren't even thinking about that as an asset. But your flooring it's a building asset. And most of us have many different types of flooring throughout our facility. And each one most likely has a different life cycle. And it requires different maintenance. But you got to know, like I said before, you have to know what you have in order to maintain it. So now I'm going to go through how to get started with your asset inventory. So step one is gathering the documentation. You want to collect floor plans, construction documents, warranties. You want to review past invoices and service logs. These documents all help you confirm the locations and ages before the walkthrough. So hopefully your building on your floor plans, hopefully all of your rooms have a number in them. They should. That helps you in many different ways, but especially in your facility maintenance. And as you're going through the building, okay, I'm in room 1, I'm in room 2, etc. And you know what assets are in room 1, in room 2, etc. Another document that some people have, some don't, but if you have a work order management system, those are priceless. I definitely encourage everyone to get a work order management system. Obviously, for preventive maintenance going forward, they're so helpful. You can set up recurring maintenance, planned maintenance, and then whenever you have reactive maintenance, you can put what happened and the cost of the maintenance, and you can log it according to the asset. So that helps you go back and you can see the history of the asset, which is so helpful. You can start to see if such and such asset is having a lot of problems and costing you a lot of money, or hey, this asset, even though maybe it's near the end of its life cycle, it seems to be performing well and we've rarely had to put any money or repairs into it. But it's definitely a great planning tool, and anyone who wants to build out a really good facility maintenance plan, I definitely suggest having a work order management system. So like I'd said, these documents are important to go over before you even go out in the field. A lot of us, at least how I am in a lot of things, I just want to jump into it and get started. And I'm excited if you're like that, you want to go ahead and get started, but it's very important that you follow the process, because if you just jump in and get started, more than likely you're going to miss a few things. You're going to get frustrated because you're repeating the process over and over and you're finding different things each time, and it's just not going to be as accurate. Take your time, follow the plan, and you will come up with a good inventory of your assets. And it seems simple and quick, but it's not. It definitely takes time, it takes effort, but once you get your inventory or your asset inventory built, it's also important going forward to maintain it. Let's say that you have an asset that you are going to replace. You want to make sure that you take that asset out of service history, but you want to keep that so that you can see it going forward. And then you want to enter your new asset that is replacing that into your inventory so that you can see what you have. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. Step 2 is walking the building. You want to be methodical, and that's why you have to have step 1, where you have your floor plan, your construction documents, and all those other documents. So you want to do a room by room walkthrough. This is what I kind of had talked about earlier. It's important that all of our facilities have room numbers and or room names associated with them. So for example, if I'm going through your facility, once I enter into, let's just say it's the sanctuary. I know where I'm at. Then there might be 4 or 5 doors off of your sanctuary that go to different places. Maybe it goes to the lobby. Maybe it goes to offices. Maybe it goes to some Sunday school rooms. Whatever it might be, when I enter that new room, I want to have a floor plan that shows where I'm at, what room number I'm in, so that I can log what assets are in each one of those rooms. So as you go through, you want to identify the major systems in each area. Some tools that you're going to definitely need to bring along with you: a clipboard. You're going to need a pen or a pencil. I really like the pencil so you can erase it. You're going to need some paper. Like I had said before, I really like blowing up a floor plan and then having also a note sheet. But on the floor plan, where I can write in the assets, I like to write in what assets in each room, and then on the note sheet, a little bit more about the asset. Like, okay, the make and model of the asset, the age of the asset, and the condition if I can. So as well as the clipboard and the pen or the pencil and the paper, you want a flashlight. Oftentimes you get in a room even with a working light, but let's say the light bulb is burnt out, that's even worse. But even with a working light, as you're trying to in a cramped mechanical room get around and get the nameplate off of something, flashlights come in handy. Your phone to take pictures, and also most of our phones have flashlights on them. A ladder helps you reach items that are high up. Screwdrivers, I guess screw guns, pliers, stuff like that help too. Like it's nice whenever you're going through and you're really diving into it. And then if you need to take off maybe the front panel of your air handler to see the nameplate, sometimes you'll need those things. And make sure, as I said, with your phone having the camera, that you take photos for record keeping. I'd mentioned before how I love a work order management system, and the good ones actually allow you to also put the photos in there. So let's say, for example, your AC condenser that runs the offices. I can actually take that picture and put it in your work order management system so that later, if you're sending out a volunteer or even a contractor, you even have a picture of which air handler you're talking about. You've got all the information and a photo, which a photo, as they say, is worth 1,000 words. So that's definitely important. The next step is getting the document details. I kind of mentioned before, but I'd like to write on the floor plan what assets in each room, and then in my notes, a little bit more information about it. So for each asset, you really want to record, and this is another reason you want to take pictures, because inevitably you're going to have to go back to those pictures because maybe you wrote something and you can't read it, or maybe you missed writing something down. But you want to get the age of the asset. So either the install date or the last replaced if you can't actually get the age off the nameplate. For example, your roof. Your roof, you might only be able to get the install date. And then that will help you, obviously, plan out your life cycle planning. So the condition, is it in good, fair, or poor condition? And when you're doing your asset inventory, I always say it's important to assess the assets as you're going through. You're already going through the building, taking the time, go that little bit slower and assess those as you go. And you don't have to be a professional in every area to get a pretty good assessment as you're going through. Listen to your unit. For example, your air handlers. Is it loud? Is it squeaking? Does it sound like a belt is flapping? If you feel a little more confident in your maintenance skills and you remove the cover, you can actually look at the belt itself. Is it cracked? Does it look like it's loose and in need of repair, or not repair, but replacement? Those are all important things. You also want to be looking at, let's say, once again, your HVAC stuff. Let's go back to the air handlers and the filters. Are the filters dirty? Are they clean? Has someone written the date when the filter was last replaced? That's always important, especially if you pay an outside company to change the filters. Make sure they're writing the date on there. That's important for them, but it's also important for you. You want to be able to go back and see when these were actually replaced. And if no one wrote the date on them, there's really no proof on when this was done. But let's say that you're going through, you're looking at the filters, you see the date, so it can tell you if it was done a long time ago or if it was done recently. And you can see the condition of the filter. Is it very, very dirty? Is it clean? That condition can tell you a lot about that. For example, if that air handler is 10 years old, has really dirty filters, and you think you hear a lot of squeaking from it, that's telling you a lot of stuff without you being a professional. Right then, I definitely would not say that it's in good condition. It might be closer to the poor. So that kind of stuff always helps you assess as you're going through. And the other thing you want to record for each asset is the location, the specific building, and the room within that building. If you can even get more specific on the floor plan to write, which corner it might be in. Maybe, like I said before, it's a mechanical room. You might have some plumbing systems, some HVAC systems in there. You could have some electrical things in there. You could have a transformer. A bunch of stuff could be in the same room. So if you have room in there, sometimes it's nice to kind of mark out where everything is at within that room. So I'll give you kind of an example. So like writing down AHU, which is air handling unit, number 3, installed in 2011, fair condition, and located in the education wing of the mechanical room, or in the mechanical room. So that tells you a lot right there. That's valuable information that's going to go in your work order management system. And later, whenever you're referencing the air handler 3, you know where it's at, when it was installed, and you know what number you have named this air handler. It's the number 3 unit, because if you've got 3, then you should have number 2, number 1. Maybe they've been replaced and now you've got number 4, number 5, whatever it is. You just want to make sure you actually also have a identification for these assets. And in this picture, this is a good example of why we take pictures. So you can see from the picture alone, it's an air conditioner that was manufactured in 1996. Well, I'll tell you that most air conditioners usually have a life cycle of 15 to 20 years. So if this was taken in 2025, not only is this data plate in great condition, but the system, if it's still running, has far outlived its expected life cycle, and that's great. Maybe it was really well maintained and it's just exceeding its life expectancy. But anyway, it tells you a lot about this. Especially, it'll tell your technicians about it. It tells you the volts. It tells you a little bit about the compressor, and you can get a lot of information from this nameplate. Things you'll want to know, though, are, like I said, the manufacturer date, what the unit is the air conditioner, and I also really like to write down the manufacturer. So this was made by Train Company. You can see in the center of that picture. So the Train Company in Tyler, Texas. The fourth step is using templates and tools. So you want to organize the information into spreadsheets and templates for clarity. You can do this even as you go through, or you can do this back in the comfort of maybe an air conditioned or heated office after you're done and you're putting everything together. I mean, you can do this on your tablet, your laptop, or you can even do this just on a spreadsheet that you print out. But, we've just got an example of a template here that's asking what building it was in, the asset type, the asset itself, the asset location, the manufacturer date, the visual assessment grade, and the asset age assessment grade. But so that's just a nice simple template that's going to give you a lot of information, and it helps you organize it. It also keeps you consistent across all assets. It'll keep the next person that does it consistent also. So you can find we have even more examples, and I guess a little more detail in our excuse me, our inventory, our asset inventory and assessment pillar for foundational facility management, but there's lots of different templates out there. So I'm going to give you a little bit of how we assess assets in the field. And then when we get back to the office, we can also assess those assets on the age of the asset. But on the left-hand side, you'll see a little grading system where it's based on asset sites, sounds, and historical data. This is where that would be very helpful if by chance your church has a work order management system that shows the repair and maintenance data for that asset, but a lot of people don't have that information. That's okay. So then if we don't have that, we're strictly basing the asset grade on asset sites and sounds. So we'll go through. If you were giving it a 1, this is something that's in excellent condition. So without being a professional, as you go through, the asset looks new. It has no or minimal dings. All the parts that you can see look new. The asset's clean. There's no noticeable problematic noises. And as we said before, if you do have the historical data, it doesn't show many, if any, repairs. So this can go for anything. This could go for an HVAC system. It could go for a water heater. It could go for a roof. You can easily go through and get an idea of how things look visually. A lot of times, it simply tells you the story just by looking at it and taking that time. But okay, if I was going to give it a number 2 grade, that means it's in mediocre condition. The asset looks like it's used, but it's still fairly clean. You might hear some noises, but nothing extreme. Possibly a little bit high-pitched noises that indicate the asset needs some maintenance. And if you have the historical data, it doesn't show many repairs. If I was giving that a 3, because I give it a 1 through a 3 system grade, it would be in poor condition. The asset looks like it's in poor shape. It might be rusty, missing pieces. If it's a roof, maybe missing shingles or lots of patches on a flat roof. It's dirty. The asset's loud, banging, or has high-pitched noises. It's possibly even a safety hazard. And if you have historical data, it shows that this asset has received many repairs. Another way to look at this for a roof is if you're in the building and there's lots of ceiling leaks, yes, it could be some plumbing or some HVAC running between the ceiling and the roof, but you can investigate that. And if it's not, then there's a good chance if those are roof leaks and you've got multiple ones that your roof is not in good condition. So what you want to do is you want to take that grade first. Then you want to take the grade based on the age of the asset. So once again, I'd mentioned for foundational facility management, we have a complete list of the different assets and their average life cycles based on the industry standards. So for example, if I talked about earlier an AC condenser, let's say that we expect the life cycle to be 15 years, and if it's in the first third of its life, that's years 1 through 5. If it's in the middle third, then it's years 6 through 10. And if it's in the last third of its expected life cycle, that's years 11 through 15. So you can kind of see that the higher the number gets, both in grading it based on the sights and sounds and historical data, as well as the age of the asset, it means the asset is in more poor condition and closer to the end of its life cycle. So what you do is you combine these scores to help determine the risk rating. And they really help you prioritize what needs attention first. Let's say that you've got an asset that grades out at a 2 or a 3. This asset's in either excellent or good condition. So more than likely, you're not going to have a lot of problems with this asset for a while. If it's grading a total combined score of 4 or 5, that's something you want to keep an eye on. Most likely, if you have any historical data, this asset has started to show more maintenance lately, and it's getting closer to the end of its life cycle. If it's a 6, then that's likely at or near failure. This is at the end of its life cycle, and it's showing it as well, based on the sights and sounds and historical data. So that's just a basic system that we use. And it's surprising how accurate this can be. But you got to take the time to do the assessment properly. So everything takes time. People think that you can just hurry and rush through these, but when you do, you miss assets and then you miss properly grading them. So want to say again, take your time. So going from inventory to action plan. So we don't want to do all this work if it means nothing, right? So what you want to be able to do is build a replacement schedule for the next 5 to 15 years. Once you've went through all that work of inventorying your assets, you've assessed your assets. And as I said before, with foundational facility management, we've even got the life cycle averages in there. That helps you see, okay, when are my assets expected to reach the end of their life cycle? You can build out a schedule over the next 5 to 15 years for when those assets are expected to reach the end of their life cycle and require being replaced. That helps you build a real budget instead of a guessing budget. So it also helps you create a preventive maintenance checklist. When you know what assets you have and you know what those assets are, you can look at the standards for that asset and you can create a preventive maintenance checklist. That might sound overwhelming. That's another area that we have in one of our pillars is building out a preventive maintenance system. So this allows you to forecast budget needs. As I had said, building a replacement schedule and forecasting your budget needs go hand in hand, because you can see when the asset is expected to expire, and that allows you to forecast your budget needs. So you turn this data into a plan that proactively addresses your budget issues instead of constantly year after year blowing your budget in maintenance and repair expenses that you just weren't expecting or ready for. They're planned out. You're expecting that roof coming up in the next few years to need replacement. You're expecting that HVAC system to need replacing. These are the kind of things that you find out whenever you do a good inventory of your assets and you assess them along the way. So we'll open it up for questions, but before we do that, I did want to mention just an example of a couple of things that I found just going through myself and doing asset inventory and assessment. So I found many, many surprising things, but one thing was this really nice church, one of the biggest ones in this area that I had went and I had done an inventory assessment. And I was building out the asset list and going and checking out the assets. Well, they had a large air handler. And as I had said before, there's a couple things that I'm going to look for right away with the air handler. One of them is, does it look like it's maintained from the exterior? Okay. Is it clean? Does it sound really noisy? Can I get any panels off to check out any belts or anything? And one easy, quick check is the filters. On this particular unit, like I said, I want to see what the filters look like visually, and I want to see dates on there so I know how long ago these were replaced. Well, not only did these filters not have any replacement dates, this was a system that took 6 filters. All 6 filters, they went in there at a diagonal angle, and they were so old and moist that they had crumpled up and all 6 had fallen down into the lower part of the air handling system. So obviously they were no longer filtering air, and you would not have wanted them to be filtering any air. And that was just one example. And this church was having a problem with constant HVAC problems. And the thing was, they weren't getting to the root of their problems. All it was, hey, someone's complaining that in the summertime, they're having a tough time keeping it cool. In the wintertime, they're having a tough time keeping it heated. Well, when you see something like that, it's usually a quick indicator that you're going to have other maintenance issues. The exterior air condensers, the coils hadn't been cleaned in years. You could tell they were caked. There's no way that a proper airflow was going to get through that and help that condensing unit, which was shortening the lifespan of the condenser, and it wasn't allowing it to perform at its best. But I just wanted to bring that up. That's one small area out of many that I've seen, but you'll be surprised. The more that you know about your building, the more that you can predict things that are going to go wrong, and you can be ahead of the game. But now we're going to open it up for questions. I see any. Okay. Got a couple here that I'm going to address. All right. So how often should you reassess assets? So you should reassess your assets every year and after major projects. For example, let's say that you're doing a large remodel on part of your church. This is a great time when you're done with that to add, if you're adding any assets into your inventory, to add those in. Make sure, like I said, that you have the location and the make, model, and installation or manufacture date of that asset. And then make sure while you're doing that, this is a great opportunity to go through and check your other assets. It's funny, year to year things can change. Some of us can't even do it annually, so maybe you're going to be doing it biannually every other year. I mean, I would rather you do it before this, but even if you can only do it every 5 years, it's better than nothing assessing your assets. But the important thing is, when you do one assessment, that gives you a baseline, but things can change over time. So, okay, and this year, you know what? Everything might look good on my roof, and I might think, I can get another probably 3 to 5 years out of this. And then over that next year, maybe some some problems start to rear their head. Maybe I start having more leaks and I see, oh, I'm having more peeling shingles. Oh, we had a bigger storm and the shingles are getting older, and some of those shingles got ripped off. And all of a sudden, one year I thought I had 3 to 4 more years. And then the next year when I assess it again, I can already tell, okay, this roof needs to be replaced now. It's always important to be assessing your assets, but you have to start somewhere. And a lot of us can't do it every year. So like I said, if you do it every other year or at least every 5 years, it's greatly going to help not only your preventive maintenance program, it's going to help your budget as well. So next question. Can volunteers help? Okay. So definitely they can help. And what I like to say is yes, 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 with a structure and with some oversight. So I built at one church, I took over the facility maintenance, and I took a volunteer team that had 3 people, and I built it to 25 in less than a year. And what I learned in that time is a couple of important things. One, because unfortunately, I also lost some volunteers quickly because I didn't know everything at that point that I learned later. But one thing is, when someone offers to volunteer, contact them. Contact them as soon as you can and find out a little bit about them. They might have some skills that you don't know about, and they might love to show those skills. Maybe they're going through a hard time in life and they actually are looking for fellowship. So you want to make sure that you put them in an area where they're serving around other people. Maybe there's someone, hey, they just need to get away from it all and they want to give back and just chill a little bit. Maybe they want to work by themselves. So you got to know your volunteers. That's the first thing. The second thing is making sure your volunteers are appreciated. So important. From leadership down, I would always go to the pastor and the other leaders, you know, like, oh, so and so volunteer group is doing such a great job. You know, please let them know when you see them, you know, that you notice that. I make sure that if there's an event maybe and we have some extra volunteers, make sure those volunteers are thanked and appreciated. Make sure if you've got regular volunteers for your maintenance that they're recognized and appreciated. Very, very rarely can a church run properly without volunteers. Those volunteers help us get everything done that we need to get done and keep our buildings going. So you want to make sure that you take the time to thank them. And then the last thing is make sure you have an organized plan. So if not only did I have my regular volunteers and what I would do, like I said, I got to know them. So I knew what they were looking for. I knew their skills. I made sure they were appreciated. And then they had regular tasks. Maybe there was someone who didn't want to come but once a month, but maybe there was someone that wanted to do something weekly. So that also helped me decide, okay, what area can I put them in? And what area can I serve alongside them in? I'd like to try and serve along the volunteers once in a while at least, so I get to know them a little bit better. But anyway, so I put them in a place to succeed. You know, someone that doesn't care about plants at all, you might not want to put in charge of watering the plants. And someone that doesn't care about replacing light bulbs or is very scared of ladders, you might not want to put in charge of replacing the light bulbs throughout the church. So you want to put those volunteers in a place to succeed. It makes them feel valued. It makes them want to come back. So build out your volunteer tasks and the frequency of when those tasks have to be done and make sure that you follow that. So when a volunteer shows up, they know what's expected of them, what needs to be done, and when they'll be finished. So that makes them want to come back and contribute. So I also would have, which this is important, your volunteers are busy, so you don't want to overdo this, but I would do quarterly meetings with my volunteers. And that was just, hey, if they wanted to come, great, have pizza and talk about the next quarter, what we were gonna focus on, if we had any projects coming up, or if it was just status quo, we were going to keep going through everything. I would check on everyone, stuff like that. But it was a chance to get everyone together to let them see that there were a lot of other volunteers. So I know that was a kind of a long answer, but I'm really passionate about you building up a volunteer team because you cannot do it alone. Even if you have a facility maintenance manager by themselves, they need some help. So building a good volunteer team is priceless. All right. Next is, what if records are incomplete? You know what? That's okay. You got to start somewhere, right? So start small and build forward. If you have some records, that's great. Try and get them organized. If you have a work order management system or an asset management system, which are kind of the same thing, but what it does is it groups your, you can put your asset in this system and then put all the information for that asset in there. But that's great. If you don't have one of those, go ahead and build out a simple spreadsheet. You have to start somewhere. With that spreadsheet, you want all of your assets from your inventory. You want all of your assessment of those assets on that spreadsheet also. And then as you get records, try and link it to your assets. You might have still a paper system, or you could just build a system through Excel and Word documents and folders. I definitely, like I've said before, I definitely encourage you to have a work order management system, which in the industry, a lot of us call it the CMMS, a computerized maintenance management system. But there's many different ones. Some people even use task management systems to do this, which would be like Asana. But they all have, I guess, their pros and cons, but definitely the ones that are built to help you build out your assets and have a preventive maintenance plan are the best in my mind, but you have to start somewhere, like I said. And from that point forward, make sure you take any repairs that you do to those assets and you put them into whatever system that you're using so that you start to build some historical data. All right. And last question I'm going to do right now is inventory versus an FCA. So I mentioned before, an FCA is a facility condition assessment, and the inventory is kind of the inventory we know is going and finding what assets you have. An inventory can be done by a do-it-yourselfer with a good plan, and the better the plan and the more organized and willing you are to take time, the better results you're going to get. The FCA, the facility condition assessment, that's more along the expert level. You're able to get a deeper analysis, you'd still get the assessment like we went through before. You'd still get all the assets assessed, but we would be able to assess your entire building and kind of give you a complete overview of this is where your building's at, along with where your assets are at. These are the ones you need to address immediately. These are the ones that can wait a little bit longer. This is what your expenses are looking like in maintenance and repair over the next X years, and things like that. We can get really detailed in there and help you out so that you can start to put together a real facility maintenance system. So it's definitely a deeper dive. And if you're serious about really learning about your building and setting yourself up for success later, I definitely encourage you to have one done. So the next steps and resources. You can download and use the free templates that will be emailed to you after the webinar. And I encourage you to register for next month's free webinar on September 9th, where I'll be talking about budgeting for facility management in 2026. I also, as I had mentioned before, I encourage you to consider a facility condition assessment or even just some consulting for deeper support. Like whether that is a different company or foundational facility management, it's nice to have a partnership with an outside expert that's willing to look at your facility with fresh eyes and tell you the truth about where it's at and kind of what needs to be addressed first so that you can start to make some movement forward. So I'd like to say again, thank you so much for joining us today. The next meeting is September 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be focusing on budgeting for facility management.